Good morning to everyone at this afternoon's public hearing of the Vetting Committee established under Law Number 65 of the year 2023 on the external evaluation of judges and candidates for judges of the Supreme Court of Justice. I'm Scott Bales, the chair of Panel B of the Commission, and I declare this session open. Hearings being conducted under Law Number 252 of the year 2023 on the external evaluation of judges and prosecutors and amending some normative acts, and also under the Commission's rules of organization and functioning as part of the evaluation process. The subject of today's hearing is Dorin Dulghieru. Judge, I apologize if I didn't pronounce your name correctly. Judge Dulghieru is a judge on the Central Court of Appeal, formerly known as the Chișinău Court of Appeal. Judge, welcome. I'm joined by two other panel members. To my right is Commission Member Willem Brouwer, and to my left is Commission Member Yuri Gatskin. Panel is also assisted by members of its secretariat, and you may notice in the room possibly also some members of the public or the media. The photographer present today will take pictures just at the beginning of the hearing. The hearing will be conducted with interpretation between Romanian and English. To allow for accurate interpretation, I ask everyone to speak clearly and slowly. Only one person should speak at a time. Furthermore, the proceedings are being recorded. Recordings of the public hearings generally will be available online at the Commission's website, www.vettingmd.eu, within 3 days after the hearing. Portions of the hearing held in closed sessions will not be published on the website, but will be included in the evaluation materials. During the hearing, one or more members of the panel may ask you questions. You should answer them truthfully and completely. Your answers are important to the Commission in verifying your financial and ethical integrity. At the end of the hearing, you will be given an opportunity to make a brief closing statement. In posing questions, we will take into account your privacy and, where required and possible, the privacy of your family members and close persons. We will therefore leave out unnecessary details like personal ID numbers, bank account numbers, specific real estate addresses. For the sake of privacy, we ask you to do the same. I will begin by briefly reviewing the evaluation process for Judge Dulghieru. The Commission began its evaluation on April 11th, 2024 by notifying the judge by email and asking him to complete and return an ethics questionnaire and the declarations required by Law Number 252. The judge returned the completed declarations and questionnaire on April 30th, 2024. As part of evaluating a subject's ethical and financial integrity, the Commission also obtains information from many other sources, such as the National Integrity Authority, the State Fiscal Service, the General Inspectorate of the Border Police, other public institutions, financial institutions, and open sources. The Commission assesses the information it obtains for its relevance and reliability. Between October 21st, 2024 and January 16th, 2025, the panel asked Judge Dulghieru 3 rounds of questions seeking additional information to clarify certain matters. He provided answers and documents in response to the Commission's questions. On January 31st, 2025, we notified the judge that the panel had identified some areas of doubt about his compliance with the ethical and financial criteria and invited him to attend today's hearing. On January 31st, 2025, the judge sent the Commission his request for access to the evaluation materials. The Secretariat provided access to those items on February 5th, 2025. On January 30th, 2025, Judge Dulghieru also sent the Commission a request that the hearing be held partially in closed session to relate to certain issues regarding automobiles. The Commission accepted Judge Dulghieru's request and advised him accordingly on February 3rd, 2025. On February 9th, 2025, that is yesterday, Judge Dulghieru sent the Commission additional explanations regarding the Commission's doubts that are the subject of today's hearing. Judge, do you wish to make any additional corrections or additions to the information you've provided to this point by the Commission?
No, sunt totalmente de acord.
No, I fully agree.
Okay. Are the answers that you provided on April 30th, 2024 to the ethics questionnaire and the declarations, are they still accurate as of today?
Da, sigur, cu
Yes, of course, with the latter additions.
Okay, understood. Judge, we will ask you some additional questions during the hearing. We will try to keep our questions short and to the point. We would ask that you try to keep your answers similarly short and to the point. We are going to, as I noted, we have granted your request that certain parts of the hearing be held in closed session. We're going to begin with those topics. So I would ask now, because we are going to go into closed session, people in the room other than the interpreters and the videographers should leave, and we will advise people as soon as we're able to go back into public session. Having returned now to the open session for our hearing, Commission Member Yuri Gatskin will ask some additional questions.
Mr. Judge, I would like to start with the aspects related to the cars, because this is related to different years, and as you've noticed in the hearing notice, this is something common for different years, because throughout this assessment period, you've used approximately 6 cars which were purchased through leasing contracts on the name of your mother. The value of these cars was between 11 and 37,000 euros. According to the information that was sent to the Commission, you've mentioned in the hearing notice that the Commission broadly analyzed the incomes of your mother and of your parents in order to determine whether they could have paid for these leasing contracts. In the rounds of questions, you mentioned that indeed you and your wife were using these cars. You were registered in the car insurance policy. And part of these contracts were paid by your parents, as you mentioned. Also, the Commission identifies some doubts on the financial possibilities of your parents to pay for these cars during some years. Could you give us some details on the incomes of your parents, first of all? Yes, thank you for the question. Indeed, as you've mentioned, in terms of the financial possibilities of my parents, I will reflect the answer to different questions on the cars. So on this, I would like to mention that with the risk of repeating what I've mentioned in the previous rounds of questions, I have explained, and I think it's good to explain in the hearing also, that I do not agree with certain conclusions, because the financial possibilities of my parents were not enough in the vision, in the opinion of the Commission, to purchase some cars in certain years. And on this, I would like to persuade you that these financial opportunities, possibilities should not be seen just isolated, taking into consideration only the year when the good was purchased. We should take into consideration also the savings of the parents throughout the years, inclusively in the reference year. All these savings exceed the CEP, exceed the bank deposits, And I will give some additional explanations on those also, and also other expenses. So you mean the information in the table in point number 7? You mentioned that the Commission did not include the consumption expenditure in the analysis of incomes and expenditures. The question is, besides this incomes and expenditures, do you have documents that would show they had other sources of income besides the information that was presented? This pay slips, the information from the social insurance company, and also from the bank, showing that they were withdrawing in full these funds in cash. I have no other documents. But based on the information I got from the same sources, starting with 1999 until 2023, only the salary and the pensions received by my parents are more than 415,000 euros. This is 1999-2023. But I do not have supportive documents before 1999 because, as you understand, it's a long way back. Besides this, I would like to mention that starting 1999 until 2012, and inclusively during the verification period, my parents didn't have any major purchases except these cars. And I'm sure that the Commission checked this. They didn't even go on holiday, or they didn't go in places that are more delicate or exotic. So they lived in a modest way, and this allowed them to have certain savings. And one more aspect, even now, so that you better understand, my parents are working and are also receiving the pension. And to have analysis in comparison with my salary, monthly, they have approximately 3 times more than my salary. I'm referring to the current situation. And this also shows that they have the financial means to have savings.
You did not submit to the Commission any information regarding these savings. Could you tell us now where these were kept and how these savings were accumulated? As in any other family, taking into account that they have or at a specific age, and let's say they do not trust so much in banks, but they had some bank accounts, but most of the money was exchanged and kept at home. As you've noticed, some money was used for expenditure, for household, some other money was used to help our family. For the rest, money was kept at home because that's the mindset, that's the thinking of our or this category of people, let's say. You said that your parents had no significant procurements, but according to the information of our commission, they bought some cars actually. I actually referred to those cars. I said that only the cars were the highest expenditure they had, and the cars were used by my wife, and this will relate to the topic that I requested to be discussed in the closed session. Going back to the cars that were purchased via leasing contracts, you said to the Commission that your parents paid for those installments for the leasing contracts, and the contracts were signed by them, and in some cases you you issued a verbal mandate in the name of your parents. Could you explain what was the reason to include the parents in relation to those leasing contracts, but not your wife or someone else in your family?
pot să vă explic.
Yes, I can tell you about that.
Începând cu
So, starting with 2013, which would be the year I bought the first vehicle in leasing, and I want to clarify that those cars are the one bought by our parents that we use, but we have nothing to do with the property rights. So those are the cars that I bought in leasing, but the parents had a specific contribution in terms of paying some installments for the leasing contract. And in that case, I want to inform you that I signed the contracts, but a mandatory condition which was included in that contract, a mandatory condition from the leasing company was to ensure as a guarantee or the first installment to guarantee the full execution of the contract by putting as a guarantee pledge some good, but or ensuring the guarantee via other measure, and we had as a guaranteeing person our mother, and this allowed us to ensure the leasing contract and this contract with the mother being as a guarantee. So next we will talk about every year separate. You have the information in front of you, the tables and everything. So in the hearing notice, you've seen that the Commission established a difference between incomes and expenditures during amounting to about 2,700,000 lei. But this includes also these leasing contracts for the cars. Going back to 2012, according to the table, you can see that the Commission identified 172,000 lei as incomes, and the difference, final one, is 1,800 and something like. It's about 17,000 lei, sorry. So going back to year 2012, given that we have a long period of time since then, we've declared the savings we had at the end of the year, roughly, estimatively. And I want to communicate to you that from discussions with my wife, because she's the one in charge of the household related activities, so we've established that this would be the savings. But at the same time, when the problem for 2012 appeared, in our discussions with she informed me that in 2012 our first child, the older child, turned 16 and turned 7th age school, so we celebrated at home with our parents, grandparents and godparents. And for school preparings for the first year of school, we had, let's say, some financial support. Moreover, I know about the role of the Commission related to the savings at the end of the year, saying that the savings would go for the next year. But actually, that's what created this balance, because we had savings amounting to 20,000, money that we had, but the Commission put them for the next year, and they also amounted as deficit for that year, and that's what led to this negative balance. But taking into account the sources that we had, in the discussions with with my wife and discussing about that event, we finally arrived to a deficit of more than around 9,000 lei, not 17,000. So you're saying that this event ended up with a financial support of around 8,000 lei. So according to the estimate that we had with my wife, but she's the one that is doing more in the household, and she remembers more than me in that sense. For the other savings at the beginning of the year and at the end of the year, they are correct. Yes? Yes. So let's go now to 2013. For 2013, you had expenses which were more by 223,000 lei. And in the answer to the commission, you said that 205,000 lei were a gift from the parents. Could you clarify on the origin, the source of the gift? 205,000, and if that money was used to pay the leasing contract for the Skoda car. Indeed, the difference or that deficit for 2013 is due to the first installment I paid for the leasing of the Skoda vehicle, Skoda Octavia 2013. That amount was available to my parents, was in the possession of my parents following the sale of the car they previously had. BMW 520, year of manufacture 2008, which was sold in November 2013 for almost, as we remember, 13,000 euro. So from this source, because taking into account the issues discussed in the closed session, there was this significant need to have the car for the family. That's why the parents decided to come with this support, which was like a free of charge thing or support, and the installments were paid monthly. If I can clarify something else relating to the cars that we've discussed about, just a little bit of clarification. All the cars were bought not from the money from our family budget, not all the money, not all the amount was taken from the family budget. Mostly the price was covered from the previous sale plus the difference, which was not so significant, had to be paid. So for 2012, let's say, they bought a Skoda Octavia car for which they paid 11,500 euro. Out of those, 10,000 euro resulted from the sale of the previous car, and they only had to add 1,500 euro, which was the difference between the sold car and the newly bought car. And this is the case for all the other cars that were purchased later on. So this did not mean that we needed to take a big amount of money from the family budget to buy a car, and for the next year, for example, to do the same thing, to take the full amount for the car. Most of the procurements were covered by the sales of previous cars.
Excuse me, please make a remark on this. In the inexplicable wealth chart of your parents, both the selling and the buying of the cars are implied. So what you're just saying, that you only needed the balance between the sales price and the purchase price, it's considered in the inexplicable chart. So this is not the issue.
Eu am explicat
I've explained for every car separately the origin or the method used for procurement. That's for the cars that belong to my parents. So I've explained for each and every car that the price for buying the car or the value for the car included the value of the previously sold car plus the difference for the new car.
I have completely understood that, but it's also in the chart itself. So the Commission has considered this.
deci la capitolul dat
So in that sense, the Commission said that if they take this into consideration, then the difference or this deficit will be lower. If not, it will be higher.
am explicat pe parcursul
So I've explained in the rounds of questions and in this hearing that the cars purchased by my parents were paid by them.
și cheltuielile în cauză
And those expenses cannot be applied to my family or household because I was not part of this transaction.
Thank you.
O să referim la prima rată pentru achitare.
Let's go back to the first installment for the car. You said that that installment or tranche was paid by your parents.
De ce nu ați declarat în declarația?
Why did you not declare this in your declaration of assets and personal interest? This gift or income?
de fapt n-am
Okay, thank you very much for your question. I actually did not declare it
n-a fost făcut cu titlul de donație.
because this payment was not seen as a donation. Was not a donation. It was a payment for a third party.
Legea numărul 1264 în vigoare la momentul declarării
And taking into account that law, both in the law and the annex to the law, there was no part to include such payments. There were only donations and inheritance. So I had nowhere to put this. This is why I did not declare it like this gratuity, if it makes sense. So this fact is a legal fact, not a legal act. So I agree with you that if this was a donation, I should have had declared this. Thank you. At the same time, if we also look at this year, the Commission identified that your parents
Au procurat mai multe automobile.
bought several cars and they made some deposits.
Dacă luăm în considerare și acest cadou
And if we take into account this gift that was given to pay the first installment for the leasing, the income of your parents would be lower than the expenditures by 200,000 lei.
sau alte
Could you explain the sources of creating these savings for your parents? So as I remember, in 2013, they did not buy any car,
automobil, deci unica
did not buy a car, but the only
dar a fost ajutorul ăsta ca la
investment was the support they offered to me.
procurări sau achiziții majore.
No other big procurements they did not have. They had some deposits, but as I've said previously in the three rounds of questions, the deposits were not several in many numbers, but we it was included several deposits of 50,000 lei, but these were not made at the same time.
Finele anului scos, repetitiv,
Those were repetitive actions or recurrent actions at the end of a year. and this means that those 50,000 lei was repeated every year.
Astfel considerați că această sumă ar trebui să
So you believe that this amount should not be applied or used as an expense for your household, but as an income. If you put it in the expenditures, you should put it in the incomes too, because that was not money paid by our family.
bani vin din vânzarea
So that money comes from selling the BMW for 13,000 euro. The parents gave you all this money? No, just a part for paying the first installment.
continuare să mă refer la anul 2014.
I will go next to 2014. The difference in the incomes and expenses is about 85,000 or around 400,000 depending on the loan of 6,300 euro and 10,000 euro taken from Trandafir family.
Împrumutat acești bani și cum au fost utilizați.
Could you explain why was this loan taken and what was it used for? So, as I said in the previous rounds of questions, I benefited from the project you already know, started by the SCM relating to the improvement of living conditions for the workers in the judiciary. I also applied for this project. I was accepted. So as a result, as of 15 of July 2014, we've concluded the contract involving the investments in construction. At that moment of the signature of the contract, a first installment of 9,300 euros to be paid, and later on another installment of 6,300 was to be paid. So together with my wife, we've decided that once we applied and that were accepted by the Commission, we were thinking that we would pay those amounts using the money coming from the sale of the apartment we're living in at that moment. But also at that time it was not very simple to sell an apartment in a short period of time. We sold it, but we had losses in price because we were in a rush. At the same time, we decided before selling the apartment, we would take the loans to cover the first installments for the apartment. And to be more explicit, the loans were used only to pay the installments for the apartment. And let's look, for example, at the dates. The first loan from the 8th of August 2014 was transmitted to the developer on the 14th of August 2014. And the second loan taken on the 19th of December 2014 was sent to the developer on the 31st of December 2014. And I want to mention that even the data show that the installments were taken, the loans were taken especially to pay the installments, and we used the money to pay the installments for the aforementioned flat. Could you tell us what was the financial rationale or reason to take these loans? Taking into account the fact that you took the loans from Trandafir family without any interest rates or obligations. So as I already said, and in the previous rounds of questions and I answered, my wife had good friendship relations with Snezhana Trandafir. And when we had this possibility to improve our living conditions, my wife asked asked her if they had the possibility to help us, because she worked a lot abroad for many years, and we thought they might have had the possibility. After the discussion, she accepted they would help us, and this was the support we received. Moreover, there might be a logical question tackling the guarantee, or what money we might have used to pay the money back. And I want to say once again that we have the apartment in Sadoveanu Street, which already was taken care by some of our relatives to sell it, and selling that apartment would give us the possibility to pay back the loans.
Besides this, these were real amounts. The things happened in this way because if we hadn't had these loans, we wouldn't have had the possibility to finalize this project regarding the improvement of the living conditions. Also, referring to this loan, could you tell us, could you offer us additional proof relating to these financial interactions, transfers, receipts, the income sources for Trandafir family, or where they used to work? We don't want to cross the limit of common sense, at least from our side as friends. We asked for some documents from them, and this is what we gave you. We cannot offer other proof or documents, but the fact that this money was loaned to us shows that they had this money. Moreover, the lady offered a self-declaration, and she has a legal background, so she understands the consequences if she confirms that she indeed gave us this amount of money. Otherwise, I hope you will understand that I cannot insist more in terms of information about their household, their incomes, and other aspects. I meant that if these funds were in their bank accounts, for example, and they were withdrawn on that date that offered to you, this would be a proof for the commission. And this would show that indeed you had these financial relationships. As you mentioned in the answers, the amounts were offered in cash. Yes, but you don't know whether they were withdrawn from the bank or they were kept in cash? No, I know that besides the money that the family of that person had, she was also managing the money of her mother who was working abroad. But again, I don't think it would have been good from my side to ask, but I didn't think that we would have such situations in the future. At that moment, their family helped us, and it would be stupid of us to insist for them to offer some documents that maybe they don't want us or the broader audience to know about. So this is why we offered the excerpts, the documents they offered, but we have nothing more to add to that. Also in 2014, you decided to sell the Skoda Octavia car, and in that year, your mother was the one in a leasing contract, the grantee. Could you offer additional details showing that she had the financial possibilities to cover this first installment? Let me be more exact. For all the contracts that I purchased using leasing contracts, the first installment was paid. Well, the support for the first leasing was only for the first Skoda Octavia in 2013. Then for the Skoda Superb and the others, the installments were paid using the money from the sale of the other cars. So I sold Skoda Octavia, I obtained a certain amount of money, and this was paid as the first installment for purchasing the Skoda Superb from 2014. And just one comment, I think there was a small difference, and my parents covered this. Otherwise, they were paid using the funds from the sale of the previous cars. So, do you agree with all the figures related to the expenses for 2014 that were mentioned in the table? So this amounts to 743,000. Page 29. We discussed about the first two installments for the apartment, the installment for Skoda Octavia, the first small installment for Skoda Superb. For the purchase of Skoda Superb, 10,000 euro were obtained from the sale of the Skoda Octavia car, and a difference of 4,183 euros was paid by my parents. Moreover, that she was the grantee. So, indeed, this was paid by my parents. So how did this happen in practical terms? Your parents went to the leasing company and paid, or they transferred this? No, we went together. As I mentioned, when we concluded each contract, we had this procedure, not of negotiation, but we discussed the contract. So when we discussed the contract, they said that whether we use an asset as a guarantee or someone will act as a guarantor. And we decided that my mother would be the guarantor, and the payments were made together. So I used the amount from the sale of the previous car and the support offered by my mother, and we went to the bank and we deposited those amounts. Thank you. Now we will discuss about 2015. Initially, the Commission established a difference of 258,000 plus or minus a donation received from your brother-in-law, Igor. This donation was given in that year. It was free of charge, and it was worth 30,000 euros. Could you give us more details about how things led to this situation and how did you use this money in your household? Given the fact that it should have been used for improving the living conditions for your for the children. Yes, it was a donation that had to be used in the interest of our children. Thank you for this question, and I'll explain. Indeed, the amount of money that was offered as a donation was used to pay back the loans we discussed about from 2014, the two loans from Trandafir family. And later, it was used to pay the remaining installments for the apartment received from the council. So if we look at how things evolved, one can see that these amounts were paid from the donation I obtained. To be honest, when we initiated this procedure to purchase the apartment we were living in wasn't that easy to sell. It was the initiative of my wife to sell it because we were in the or not to sell it, to receive this. She said, we discussed with my brother, with my family, and they are ready to support us. I would like to mention that these amounts of money were transferred throughout 10 years because my wife's brother is in Spain since 2000. He is living there, he has a job, a family, children, and so on. But at the beginning, just like any person from Moldova, not knowing what will happen further, he was transferring some amounts home, and this was brought by his mother, Claudia Moisenko. And besides the bank transfers, the copies of which were given to the Commission, as I discussed with my wife, when he was coming back, he was bringing some money or he was sending us through packages. I didn't ask because this would be rude. This is something related to their family. But they had this amount, and when he decided to help us, the money was given by my mother-in-law, who was keeping it. You mentioned that at the beginning of the 2000s, your brother-in-law won a significant amount at the lottery in Spain. Are these funds from that source from the beginning of 2000 or from other sources? Let me make myself clear. The money was transferred through banks. Let's discuss about this, 42,000 euros. So the money was transferred from a European country to the Republic of Moldova. And I think that we could not doubt these transfers and the fact that the money existed. Related to your question, and I presented the proof that he was so lucky comparing to many other citizens of Moldova who were working there. So he was lucky enough to win this amount of money together with his wife. So he started to build his own house using this money. I offered some documents for this. So I can't say for sure that this was from this amount. But besides this amount, they were also working. Both he and his wife had jobs. I didn't discuss with him on this because there are these transfers which we cannot deny. But what was the method or where he took it from? Well, it wouldn't have been fair for me to get so involved in his personal life, in his lifestyle, and other personal aspects. Thank you. In this period, between 2001 and 2015, did your brother-in-law have other jobs also in Spain? Yes. as I mentioned, he started building his own house. Moreover, he started working in construction. So let's say that this amount of money that he won was an incentive not to start his own business, but he purchased the tools necessary and he started working in the area of constructions. There were several Moldovans in that region, and together with him, they were building different buildings. And he and his wife were working, and they are still working.
Tot în acest an a fost procurată
Also, that year, a Hyundai Tucson car was purchased by your mother,
care ar fi vândut
who allegedly sold another car.
puteți explica
Could you
circumstanțele acestei tranzacții și cum a
explain
fost
how this transaction happened and how this purchase of your parents was funded? As mentioned, this Hyundai Tucson was
deținut cu drept proprietate de către părinți.
owned by my parents. I have no relationship with that car. So that car was purchased, as mentioned, for 70,000 euros. But again, these 70,000 euros were not paid from the incomes they had in that year. This is because they had a Honda CR-V car, and from what we remember, this was sold for 15,000 euros. Therefore, for that year, let's say that their investment was only 2,000 euros, the difference between the sale of the old car and the purchase of the new car. So they didn't spend 70,000 euros from the budget of the family just to purchase that car.
a fost utilizat către familia dumneavoastră.
But later this car was used by you and your wife? No, I already had the car bought in leasing, but upon need, this was used by my wife due to the needs I mentioned previously. We did not deny this. This happened because otherwise we wouldn't have coped. In the rounds of questions, you said that
Contractul de achiziție
indeed, in the purchase contract for this car, there's your signature. You said that she asked you to do this. Yes. To be honest, I didn't even remember this. Did the company accept your signature instead of hers? Yes. So this happened within the company. So I was discussing with my mother. You can understand that she's at a certain age already, but she said that she didn't have her glasses with her. Well, I don't remember. This is based on what we can recall. Afterwards, we went to the Public Services Agency where we had to do the registration documents, and the registration and the money was given by her. From what I remember, she and my wife left, and the money was paid in the bank, not at the desk of the agency. In the insurance company for this car, you included your mother, my wife, your wife. Yes, because the doubts of the commission were related to the fact that once the wife was on the insurance policy, and I think that she had signed the insurance policy, you consider that she was the main beneficiary. Your mother doesn't have a driver's license, correct? Yes, she doesn't have a driver's license, but as mentioned previously, this would not hinder anyone to purchase or to own an asset
familia părinților, deținători de
because
conducere, de fapt, și care exploatează, conduce, este tatăl.
my father is the one that has a driver's license and he's the one driving. So the fact that
Chiar nu am
she doesn't have a driver's license wouldn't be an obstacle.
de chestiuni.
Tot în acest an dumneavoastră ați
Also, in that year, you mentioned that you paid back that loan of 16,300 to Trandafir family.
din ce
Could you tell us
financiare ați
what financial
mijloace financiare și
sources, what sources of income were used for this? And do you have any documents proving that the payback was done in that year? Bank documents or a receipt? As mentioned, this amount of 10,000 and 6,300 was paid from the donation offered by my brother-in-law.
Și ulterior banii care au fost
And
rămași au fost
later, the money that we still had was paid to pay for the remaining installments for the apartment. And if I'm not mistaken, the amount for the last installment was declared in the declaration of asset with Dania.
la sfârșitul anului dumneavoastră ați declarat
In the end of the year, you declared 60,000 lei in savings. Those savings were in cash, or what were the amounts creating the savings? For 2015, you mean? Yes? Yes.
noi am declarat
So we declared in 2015 the savings, which represent more some instantaneous gifts related to birthdays or some family events.
referitor la anul 2016.
Going back to 2016, the Commission preliminarily calculated the expenditures that were higher than incomes by about 600,000 lei.
Ați menționat că ați vândut un
You said that that year you sold the Skoda Superb car in 2016
sumă de 400,
for 414,000 lei.
dar tot în acest an ați procurat un automobil de
But the same year you bought another Skoda Superb, from the same year for the same amount, for 127,000 lei.
Puteți explica cum prețul la aceste automobile, de ce prețul de procurare
Could you explain about this price? Why the price for the new car was the same that for the car you sold, the older one? As far as I remember, from the amount I obtained from the sale of the car from 2014, this was paid as first installment for the leasing contract because I bought it via leasing. So this was the first installment for the other Skoda bought already from 2016.
au urmat, adică conform contractului.
And later on, according to the leasing contract, we paid the other installments, the later installments.
Același preț,
It was not the same price, but the price from the sale of the Skoda Superb from 2014 was used as the first installment for the leasing for the other Skoda from 2016. And with the following installments for the leasing contract.
în anul 2015 mama dumneavoastră
Also in 2015, your mother, in 2015, 2016, your mother sold the Hyundai Tucson car you mentioned previously.
aveți confirmări ce țin de tras?
Could you tell us, do you have some confirmation related to the sale, the money, the price, some notes, let's say? She sold the Hyundai Tucson car and she bought from Hyundai company Hyundai Santa Fe. So the money from the sale of Hyundai Tucson was used to buy another car.
Careva, nu, ei nu, eu cel puțin am întrebat de părinți, dar
Well, I asked my parents. I have no other details, but it's been a long time already, and as you know, maybe once the car is not already registered in your name,
mobilul apare din momentul transmiterii. Adică
you can lose track because it is known about it as long as you have it in your own name.
postul străinat și respectiv
So the Hyundai Tucson was sold and the Hyundai Santa Fe was bought. There's a difference in the prices of those cars. It's quite significant. Who covered the difference? The parents. It's about 300,000 lei.
15.000, dacă nu mă greșesc.
If I'm not mistaken, I offered 15,000.
Au fost, da, din
15 or 16,000 were paid by the parents from the savings they had.
totalitate din mărul discordiei, haideți să spunem așa, la automobile,
So let's say this problem with the cars is when we have a bigger difference in prices.
o să apară pe anii
But for the later years, we would pay like 2 or 300,000 euro difference. But this was a more significant difference and was paid by them. So in 2016, the installments for the apartment and Skoda Superb were on you in that year. You mean the apartment at a preferential price? Yes. So regarding the apartment, as I mentioned, the installments were paid from the donation. We've reimbursed the loans and the rest were used for the installments because one installment was paid in 2016 and another in 2017 when the construction was done.
leasing,
Regarding the leasing,
parte din leasing a fost
part of the leasing contract
dintre rate de leasing
or leasing installments were paid with the support of our parents.
22.01
And this was between January 2016, November 2016. And what would be the amount of the support from your parents? This would be about
80.458
80,458 lei. And from December 2012 till December 2017, it was paid about 116,000. It would be a total of 190 something thousand lei from the parents.
Referitor la anul 2017,
Let's talk now about 2017. For this year, you had again a loan
la familia
from Trandafir family amounting to 800,000 lei.
Puteți să explicați care a fost
Could you explain what was the purpose of the loan and how was this taken?
documentat careva
If you had some confirming documents and so on. So
toate, haideți să spunem, toate mișcările astea
let's say all these
țin de procurare.
transactions or movements related to the procurement of the apartment, as you asked in the previous questions,
De fapt, scopul îmbunătățirii
the idea was to improve the living conditions.
contractat
The amount that my wife took from Trandafir family
procurarea apartamentului din strada Miron
was used to buy the apartment in Costian Street.
explicit. Deci,
And to be explicit, the apartment
oferit la preț
given at the the preferential price by the SCM was in white 4, meaning just walls. We calculated together with the wife that this format, this initial space was not made for living, so we needed some specialists, some investment to make it ready to use. And moreover, in the next period that we needed the repair work to be done, we needed to have another apartment, to rent an apartment to live in. This meant that we had increased expenses for the place to live in and for the apartment to be repaired. So we decided with my wife to sell both apartments and to find an apartment that would meet our needs, meaning to be ready to for use without needing other investments or repairs. And the 800,000, according to the loan contract, was for the flat that we still live in Miron Costin Street.
Referitor la acest apartament,
On Miron Costin Street. Going now to this apartment on Miron Costin Street. How to explain the difference between the difference in price for 1,127,740 lei and the assessment of the market price by Ardual Consulting LLC, which estimated the value at about 2.9 million lei. This was previously used as a guarantee or as a pledge by the previous owner. Regarding the street on Miron Costin Street, we found by accident about it being sold from some acquaintances. We were informed that the person from whom we bought the apartment had some issues with the bank regarding the payment of some amounts, repayment of some amounts, and we were told that that person was about to sell the apartment. So we met with them, we discussed. The price was not as negotiated, but the idea was you tell us the amount you want for the price, and if we have this amount available and we can cover this amount, we can discuss. If no, we cannot negotiate anymore. And this was a price that we discussed about, negotiated, put in a contract. The contract is still valid, was not declared void, or and the price was not challenged neither by the seller nor by us. So the seller proposed the price, we accepted, and we signed the contract. But part of that amount, because we paid it not directly to the seller, but we paid it to the bank, because the asset was as a pledge, so to make it available for sale and to close the previous debt to the bank. It was about 800,000 lei. After that, the bank allowed for the apartment to be sold, and we went to the notary to perform the transaction. The most significant doubts related to this transaction refer to the fact that the liquidation value regarding the bank was about 2,183,000 lei, basically twice as high the amount indicated in the contract. So I suppose that the seller would have found it would have found it better to leave this immovable asset to the bank than to sell it. So to explain, we had this amount of 2 million and something, but the debt was lower that needed to be paid to the bank. So when there was this possibility to cover the loan, to pay the loan, basically. I don't know how about the banks, but when there's procedures of auctions or other loans and credits, and once the loans are paid with all the interest covered, I believe that the bank would have found this easier, found it best this way to get this money and to close the loan, and this was the Lara exchange, and it's an amount that is much more benefiting than the other amount, than other discussions or amounts, and this appreciation was based only on cost and surface, not on the real value of the good, without looking at the surroundings, at the appearance of the good, the state, and so on, which might have influenced the price.
Era cu reparații sau fără?
Was the apartment after repair works? The repair works were carried out in 2004, but we bought it in 2017. Those people repaired the apartment in 2004 when they moved to stay in. But now, even now, we don't have much possibility to change things, just some ordinary, non-significant repairs. You said that the sale was from some relatives, not friends, from some acquaintances that lived in that place, in that building. Were there some announcement for the sale of this apartment? I could not tell you about that. Even though there were announcements, I did not follow that, because this was some ad hoc thing. It was spontaneous. We had our idea, and at that moment when we were proposed such a possibility, we decided it would be good. So we met, just three of us, myself, my acquaintance, and the seller. So we discussed, but I could tell other details. At least at that moment, we were not thinking about other opportunities, for example, about buying something else. But after we calculated and assessed this proposal, we decided that we would like to conclude this transaction. Thank you. Let's move next to the year 2018.
Anul respectiv, Comisia Preliminară
For that year, the Commission identified a difference between the incomes and expenditures of about 128,000.
în anul respectiv
That year, your parents
beneficiarii reale ai vehicului
were the beneficial owners of the Skoda Kodiaq, the real beneficiaries. Well, actually, it was bought by our parents by the 3D operation.
ce s-a fost a doilea automobil în familia
Was this the second car in your parents' family? They just had one car at once. They never had two cars, just one. The same formula is valid as previously. Is valid for this case. They sold the Hyundai Santa Fe car to the same company. They were okay with the price the company offered, and in exchange for that, with some additional money, they bought the Skoda Kodiaq. Again, this was not a significant investment, but I believe about 5,000 more was invested. So it was 8,000 euro additional, the contribution of my parents.
dar automobilul a fost utilizat
But the car was used by your wife? It was used, as I told you, if needed. I do not deny it, because I already have the car I use, but the wife, for the aforementioned purposes, she did use the car.
În anul 2008,
And also in 2018, you managed to pay back the loan to the Trandafir family, right? 2018. Okay, let me recall now.
Nu, în 2017 nu-i pare
It seems to me in 2017, actually. Here it says 2018.
2017
In 2017, you received it, and in 2018, you paid it back. According to the data that the Commission has available, you've paid back that loan.
A, 2018, da, mă iertați.
Yes, you're right, sorry. Because it was paid on the accounts of the apartment that was sold on the Romana Street.
tot în acest an, dumneavoastră ați mai
And also the same year you bought a Toyota Camry vehicle.
în acest an au mai fost achiziții.
And the same year you paid the installments also for Skoda Superb. The Toyota Camry was bought, but we used it 1 month and then sold it because it has some defects. So we sold it and bought a Skoda Superb. Skoda Superb.
Referitor la donația primită de la cumnatul meu, 5.000
Going back to the donation you received from your brother-in-law of 5,000 euro, what was the purpose of this donation? It's a simple purpose, meaning that he visited us in 2018, and, well, actually we have an agreement between our families. If 1 year they come to visit us in Moldova, the other year we are the ones that have to go and visit them. But unfortunately, for just some circumstances, we cannot do it all the times. But once every 2 years, they would come to Moldova. And in 2018, they indeed, or he
Nu, nu pot pentru că sunt niște chestii.
was again had been against generous.
N-a fost mai mulți ani de zile, zi de naștere a copiilor.
It was the birthday. We had the birthdays of of my wife, of our children. So he decided finally to come with a gift or a donation, let's say, which amounted to this 5,000. I've told you about how the money came to us, and I issued a copy of the certificate issued by the customs service. And if I'm not mistaken, that year he came back to Moldova and he declared 15,000 euro when entering Moldova.
Sunt două certificate.
I know that there's 2 certificates, one for 10,000 euros and one for 15. And that year, if I'm not mistaken, he declared at the customs that he was having 15,000 euros.
Restul sumelor indicate la capitolul
The other amounts under incomes and expenses, do you agree with them? I agree with the corrections that I made in the later answers. In terms of the leasing installments, indeed for 2018, out of this 11,606, I paid 5,500. The rest was paid by the guarantor.
Din sumă de 19.000.
Respectively, out of this 19,000, I paid 9,500. The rest was paid by the guarantor. So I agree, given the corrections I made in the rounds of questions and in the additional answers to the Commission.
referitor la anul 2020.
Regarding 2021, the Commission identified a
755
difference of approximately 155,000 lei between the incomes and expenditures.
Puteți, vă rog, să explicați
Could you please explain,
să explic această diferență.
how do you explain
Sau venituri au
this difference and which incomes or which expenditures
indicate mai
were
greșit sau
maybe
ratat în tabelul dat.
indicated in a wrong way in this table?
În cazul de față,
In this case,
în anul 2021.
In 2021,
Eu am înstrăinat automobilul
I sold
model Passat și
the
respectiv din
Passat
din
car, and
o mică
with this amount of money, I added a small difference of 101,000 lei. I paid the first installment, but this was together with my mother, and she offered 15%, 15,268. This is probably where this difference comes. You mentioned 100,000 lei were paid. Yes, I paid together with my mother. This is what I mentioned. To purchase the last car, the one that I am using currently, Skoda Superb. Yes, the contribution of the parents was 101,000.
Deci, nu, 101.000
No,
fost diferența.
101,000 was the difference for the 420, well, additional to the 420,000 from the sale of the Volkswagen, and 101,000 was the difference in price that I had to pay for the first installment, and this I paid together with my parents. And I paid 15,268 lei. This amounts to approximately 15% of the price difference.
Restul cheltuielilor
What about the other expenses? I incurred them. Well, I paid for some of the leasing installments. Some were paid by my mother as a guarantor.
poate fi stabilită o delimitare de
Can we have a
contabilitate
separation
contului bancar.
in the accountancy of the company or in the bank accounts between what you were paying and what your mother was paying for this leasing payments?
Să fie clar,
A separation, what do you mean?
au fost
To see these installments were paid by your mother and the others were paid by you personally. Could you have such a separation? From an accountancy point of view, I don't know if this can be done, but I know what I spent, and I mentioned this inclusively in the additional declaration. For example, in 2021, out of 56,371, this is the total amount of the installments that were paid for the Skoda Superb from 2021. I paid the amount of 30,000. The difference was paid by the guarantor. And for each payment that was made, I tried to make a difference, to show what was paid by me and to show what was paid by the guarantor. Were this payment made electronically or in cash? At the bank. So the guarantor, based on an except from this surety agreement, pays this, because otherwise the bank would not pay the payment. So we have this surety agreement.
Referitor la anul 2020,
Regarding 2022,
Comisia a identificat
the Commission identified a preliminary discrepancy of
la fel în acest an
93,000.
aveți
Also, in that year, you paid back the leasing for the Skoda Superb.
unele călătorii.
You had some travels, the tuition fee. Could you tell us what accounts for this difference?
Deci, o parte din, de fapt, într-adevăr, au fost unele cheltuieli care...
Indeed, there were some
din suma de 90
expenses.
după
So,
calculele
according to the calculations made by our family, we received a negative balance of 80,541 lei.
Suma de 71.536 care
So out of this 71,536 for the leasing installments, we only paid 58,959. The rest was paid by the guarantor.
Restul datelor
What about the other figures, the tuition fee? Yes,
sunt reflectate,
these are things
adică au fost eliberate informațiile de la
for which we have information from the relevant bodies, and this cannot be denied. Thank you. And the last year, 2023.
în acest an
For this year,
mă mulțumesc să achiziționat
your mother purchased a vehicle, Skoda Kodiaq.
opțiunii trading.
Yes, also through trade-in.
Skoda Kodiaq din 2000.
So she turned in the 2018 Skoda Kodiaq, and she took the 2023 Skoda Kodiaq.
Anticipez
And I would like to anticipate
deci
your
s-a
answer.
primit mașina veche, care îți spunem așa, a fost
Let's say that the old car was
32.000 euro,
uh,
nouă a fost apreciat
sold for 32,000 euros. The new one was 37, so they covered the difference of 5,000 euros.
acesta ar explica diferența de
So this would explain this negative balance of 116,000. Yes,
nu urmează să-mi fie atribuit nici extraordinarea vânzarea
this way we should the sale of the Skoda Kodiaq from 2019 nor the purchase of the Skoda Kodiaq from 2023 should be put in our account because they don't belong to me. They were not managed by my family. So we would have a negative balance of 70,168 lei. In the end, I have a last question and a request.
prezentați comisiei
Could you offer the Commission the estimation on your parents' savings? Because the Commission needs this in order to estimate your parents' incomes and expenses to see whether they could have incurred these expenses if they are justified. Could you offer this information to the Commission in the following days?
în afară de fapt eu am făcut ilustrativ la explicații
So,
suplimentare și anterior
when I had the additional explanations and previously,
informațiile oficiale și țin de
well, this can be seen from the information on the salaries and from the social insurance company. Yes, I see, but I mean the banking documents. So you said that this was throughout the years. Yes, from 1999 until 2023, except this self-declaration.
majoritatea sumelor au fost pasate
So most of the amounts were given in cash, except the ones that were in the bank accounts. Yes, they were kept in cash, but you can imagine that they didn't gather this amount that so they didn't keep this amount at home because they had these living expenses, but they had the possibility to afford
să suporte cheltuielile
to incur these expenses because they had enough funds,
indicate în tabeli
except these deposits indicated in the tables in paragraph 7, I think, except these deposits that were identified by the Commission. Belonging to my parents, yes. Could there be other deposits, maybe abroad? No, they certainly don't have deposits abroad. They are simple people.
Da, ulterior și iarăși asta ar dovedi, dar deja excede perioada de
But this is beyond the verification period. Maybe, well, in 2024, they opened other accounts.
mă rog, excede perioada de
But anyway, this is beyond the verification period. But this also speaks about the fact that they do. These are not high amounts. They use them from year to year, so they take them out of an account together with the interest, and they open a new account. But these are the same amounts, so that I'm clear. Thank you. I have no other questions. Maybe my colleagues have some questions.
Mr. Brown?
Yes. First, you filed this writing. This is a translation. And you mentioned these numbers. And you said that these are the parents' savings over 1999 until 1923. Is that correct?
Deci, da, mulțumesc de întrebare.
Yes, thank you for
Deci
the
sunt
question.
veniturile
Well, these are the
din,
incomes
salarii
obtained from the
și
salaries and
deci, care
pensions,
și-au determinat la formarea economiei.
and this helped them to have these savings.
So these are the incomes in euros.
Venit în lei convertiți la
This is
data,
in
la anul
lei,
respectiv.
and this is the equivalent for that date in euro.
Okay.
Care și-au determinat într-un final sau
Well,
deci prin asta eu vreau să demonstrez că deci au
with this, I want to show that they
pe lângă cheltuielile
had
de
the
trai și
possibility,
consum
besides the living expenses, to have some savings and to incur some expenses
doar automobile.
for the purchase of the cars.
În perioada
Because
respectivă, din
in
și
that
afară de
period,
cumpărarea automobilului,
besides the
nu au
purchase
avut
of the cars,
majori care într-un mod sau altul
they didn't have any
la-
major expenses which would somehow make put under doubt their financial possibilities.
Okay. Thank you.
How did you put this together with such specificity? Is this, and I take it these numbers are your parents' total income for each year. Is this derived from tax filings or? I mean, how, for example, did you know that 24 years ago in 2000, the total income was 4,615 euros and 17 cents?
Cum am reușit?
How did I manage? Well,
Aceasta este o
To be
informație
clear,
oficială.
this is official information. This is confirmed
Salariale,
through these payslips or certificates related to the salaries from their workplace.
informația care este plasată pe site-ul oficial
The
al
information
CAS,
of the
iar
National
veniturile,
Social Insurance Company related to the incomes obtained, inclusively the pensions.
S-a făcut o, haideți să spunem, o matematică sumară.
So we did some simple math using my mother's and my father's incomes from the salaries and from the pensions.
Convertiți
And
adică cât ar costui, convertiți în valută
we
la anul respectiv.
saw the equivalent in currency
Adică
for
suma de
that
bani care se
year.
primește pe anul respectiv,
So
convertiți
the
în valută
amount
în anul respectiv.
of
Ori
money
informația
that we
despre,
receive
cursul
for that
valutar
year
este o informație oficială și care depinde
converted
să
in
obținem, să
euro.
extragem din
We
site-ul
have
oficial al Băncii Naționale.
this information about the exchange rate
Și
from
toată
the
informația pe care eu v-am-
site of the
la
National
care
Bank.
eu am făcut o matematică ca să fie
And
mai simplu
I
pentru,
did this in a mathematical
membrii
way to
comisii ca să
make
înțeleagă
it easier for the
posibilitatea
members
de stare
of the
financiară a
Commission
părinților.
to understand
Este,
the
am
financial possibilities of my
anexat
parents.
la, explicațiile
So
la
I annexed
rundele
this to
anterioare,
the explanation to
inclusiv
the
și salariile
previous
și veniturile
rounds,
de la CNAS.
inclusively the
Aceasta,
salaries and the information from the
reprezintă
social
iarăși
insurance
perioada
company.
de la
And this
99,
is again
din ceea ce am putut eu să
since
obțin, din ceea ce mi-au
1999,
prezentat,
since when I could
dumnealor.
obtain the information
Dar,
and from
până
what
la perioada
they
de
offered me.
99 dânsii iarăși au
But
lucrat.
they
Dar,
also
să fiu
worked
sincer, în
before
perioada
1999, and to be
respectivă au
honest,
avut niște salarii destul
in
de
that period they
ok,
had
la timpul potrivit.
pretty good salaries for that period.
Now, are these income amounts net of taxes? Are these the amounts after taxes?
Eu le-am deci, da, eu le-am luat de pe site-ul
So I took these amounts,
de exemplu, de pe site-ul CNAS,
for example, from the social insurance company. These are the amounts
în calitate de pensii, de salarii.
with the deductions.
O informație oficială a unui organ
This
care
is
privește evidența plății
official
în
information
parte
from a
persoanelor
body that
fizice,
tracks the payments for all the people in the country.
Any other questions?
Do you have actually the pay slips on these figures?
Pentru informația, eu am informația de la
I have the information from the employer. This is official information from the employer, and this was annexed to the file. For this period, we have an accountancy certificate stating that in this period, the person worked in that company. Let's say my father-in-law worked in Moldova Gas, and they received the salary of, and for each year, the salary was mentioned. This is official information from the employer.
Yes, perhaps official information, but what I asked is the document which says that's official information.
Mă iertați, întrebare n-am.
Sorry, could you repeat the question?
Yes, I can, of course. What I have here is, according to you, information you got from the employer of your father-in-law. Is that correct?
Nu, tatălui.
Not
Tatălui și mamei.
From my father and for my mother, so for both my parents.
for your father and your mother. Okay, for both your parents. Do you have any documents that state that these are the amounts of money that they received?
Păi, în calitate de document sunt...
As documents, we have these certificates issued by the employer.
Contabilul care...
So the Commission has these documents? Because
Da,
then we
sunt
can,
sunt
we
la
can
materiile cauzei,
verify it.
da.
Thank you
Yes.
very much.
Da, da, da.
Judge Dulghieru, I think we've concluded our questions. Before we end the hearing, would you like to make any additional statement? Is there anything else you'd like to tell us?
Da, dacă îmi permiteți,
Yes, if I am allowed to have a closing remark.
onorată comisie,
Honorable Commission,
în finalul acestor audieri,
at the end of this hearing, I would like to state that this procedure that I and my colleagues from the judiciary have gone through is an innovation for our country. Moreover, it was a quite complex and difficult exercise because we were asked to offer information for a period that is quite long, and sometimes it was difficult to obtain some documents or records that would be used as proof. However, I hope that I have managed to give the Commission clarifications both in the rounds of questions and in today's hearing. So I responded objectively and sincerely to the questions that were asked to me, and I have the conviction that I was understood and heard. And this confirms once again that fairness is important for all those who hope to be heard and understood. Moreover, in situations which are difficult to explain, for example, well, in the end, I would like to mention that starting from the purpose of this procedure that was part of, I hope I was able to show you the traceability of the financial means used by me and my parents for our expenditures throughout the years, and that we've answered the doubts of the Commission. In the end, I am hopeful that there will be a correct decision, and I'm sincerely grateful to the Commission. This is all I wanted to say. Thank you.
Judge Dulghieru, thank you for your answers to the questions today and your previous submissions in response to the Commission's request. This brings us to the end of today's hearing. After we conclude, the panel will approve an evaluation report stating its conclusion whether the subject meets the criteria for ethical and financial integrity under Law Number 252. The panel will strive to complete and approve its evaluation report and announce its conclusion as soon as possible. The hearing is now closed. Good afternoon to everyone.
Mulțumesc.